Today we got part 2 of how to build a big bench, focusing on technique. So this is one that I've been looking forward to for a long time. Hopefully you guys find it informative and are able to apply it to your own training. Without further ado, I think it's time to build a big bench. We're going to start off talking about shoulder position. So shoulder position in the bench press is extremely important for a few reasons. 1, it's going to protect the shoulder joint. 2, it's going to reduce the range of motion you have to press. And 3, it's going to provide you with a nice stable base to press down into the bench with. You're going to achieve this by retracting the shoulder blades and depressing the shoulder. So you don't want to be in a shrug position. You should be actively engaging all the musculature in the upper back to pull the shoulder blades into the correct position while also stabilizing the shoulder joint. So in that position on the bench, I'm digging my upper back down into the bench. So you can see from the side here, the shoulders aren't shrugging up to my ears. The upper back's nice and tight and it's driving down straight into the bench. So you're providing yourself with a nice sturdy base to press your weight from. What you don't want to see is these shoulders in an elevated position like this. In that position, it's really hard to get that shoulder blade retraction. You don't really have that solid of a base to press from because your shoulder blades aren't stabilized. And it's also going to increase the range of motion that you have to bench because your shoulders are going to be elevated versus depressed. And this is going to change the height of your chest. Again, proper shoulder position is going to reduce the range of motion that your shoulder joint has to go through throughout the bench, which is going to prevent injury. It's also going to reduce the range of motion that you have to press, which is going to allow you to bench more weight. And it's also going to provide you with a nice stable base to press your weights from. Next, we're going to move on to wrist position. And wrist position is a very undercoached area of the bench press. What you want to do is maintain a nice neutral wrist position by driving your thumb back into the bar. This will help to engage the forearm as well as increasing tension in the wrist joint, which will help to create stability. This rotation at the wrist should only happen at the wrist, and you don't want your elbow to collapse in while you're gripping the bar. You also don't want to let the bar roll back into your wrist. Again, squeezing the bar nice and tight, driving the thumb back into the bar is going to help create tension and maintain a nice neutral wrist position. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the hips and the feet. Because I compete in the IPF, I'm going to talk about having my feet flat on the floor. So what you want to do is pull your feet back as far underneath you as you can with your heels flat on the floor. This is where there's going to be a large discrepancy between a lot of lifters. Lots of times longer-legged lifters are going to have to widen their stance in order to find a comfortable position where their feet can be flat on the floor. There's no one-size-fits-all approach for foot position, and wherever you're able to get your feet underneath you is probably going to be the best position for you. Now when we start talking about leg drive, lots of people's butts will start coming up off the bench. If this is the problem that you face, try turning your heels out. So they don't have to be perpendicular to the bench, but forcing the heels out is going to make it a lot harder for your butt to come off the bench versus having the heels in. Next up, we got elbow position. So what you want to do in the bench press is have your elbows slightly in front of the barbell in the bottom position of the bench. What this is going to allow you to do is drive the weight back towards your shoulders, which is going to make it easier to lock out. With that being said, it's easy to exaggerate this movement in one way or the other. So what you want to eliminate is over-tucking the elbows, which can be seen with the elbows way out in front of the barbell. This is going to deliver an inefficient force path. On the contrary to that, you'll see some people that over-flare the elbows. So they're going to touch just below the pec line, but they're going to flare their elbows really hard, which is hard on the shoulders. It makes locking out the weight very difficult. Next up, we're going to talk about lockout. So we already discussed bringing the bar back towards the shoulder joint in order to lock the weight out, but how we're going to do that is by rotating the elbows at the shoulder. This is going to generate angular momentum, but it's also going to allow the elbows to maintain a nice position underneath the barbell all the way through to a lockout. What you want to eliminate is keeping the elbows tucked through the entire range of motion. So you can see in this video, my elbows are always pointing down towards my feet, rather than rotating externally underneath the barbell at lockout. So to recap, we want to pull the shoulder blades nice and tight together before we start our setup, and we're going to drive that down into the bench. What this is going to do is bring the chest up nice and high, reduce the range of motion at the shoulder joint, which is going to prevent injuries, and allow for a shorter bench stroke. Next, we're going to create stability at the wrist joint by driving the thumbs back into the bar and engaging the forearm. After that, pull your feet back as far underneath you as you can with your heels driving down through the floor to help incorporate leg drive. As you bring the bar down, you're going to tuck the elbows just enough to keep them underneath the barbell, and then externally rotate at the shoulder to lock the weight out, driving it back towards the shoulder joint. Hopefully you all enjoyed the video. If you got any questions or comments, you can drop it in the discussion below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I think that's all I got for you guys. As always, stay strong.